Hey folks, I think most of you will have met Luke before. He's our CTO. If you haven't, everyone, Luke, everyone. These are mostly the Regen advisors from the Landscape Impact Program, and Mike, who's a sort of test group, beta group of what one-man beta group testing for agriculture and tech and all things traceability and certification. So probably, Luke, maybe I'll start by just sharing where we've got to with the pilot 10s from each of the groups. Southern Tablelands is 9 out of the 10 farmers look to be in there. Upper Clarence, I think they have only got 8 of theirs, with a couple more onboardings to happen. Northern Rivers, we've got the lots, but not the KMLs. We're missing a few Ruminati for Pat Allen. And do you know what that's about?
Yeah, they're all mine. Gavin's done his job. I'm waiting for information to complete my Ruminatis.
Okay. And so, and Western Murray, they've only done a half a dozen, but all of their documents are ready to go. So we could do a run of the ones that we have complete information when you're able, and generate those reports for each of the Regen advisors. And then we should do another run of the other ones that get complete in the meantime, at some regular intervals that we can determine in a second. So I might hand over. I might just explain some of the efficiencies that we've got. So when you took the role of a Regen advisor, we sort of said it would be $560 for each onboarding, and the idea would be that you'd probably spend an hour or two doing an online session with the farmer to collect the information, and then you'd spend an hour or two creating the report. We're not suggesting changing the pay rate or anything like that, but that hour or two creating the report, based on our experience in Trap Rock, meant going into someone's digital twin, taking a screenshot, dumping that into a template, customizing a bit of text, going to the next page, grabbing another screenshot. And what it resulted in was not necessarily very professional looking reports, but it was taking an hour or two per report. What we're hoping to do with Luke, as a result of you guys filling in those forms, is take the data from Protected Matters Search Tool, data from Ruminati, and data sets that Luke has been able to pull together and condense them into one document, which might be anywhere from 20 to 30 pages long, which we can then provide to every farmer, and it will be quite a tangible and relevant report that, apart from this meeting, won't take you an hour or two per person. So we're probably saving 40 farmers times 2 hours, 80 hours through this process. So thank you for getting in on that spreadsheet for the last little while and updating it and making all this possible. So Luke, are you ready to prezzo, or
ready to go? So just to add to a couple of points that Wardy was talking about, we want to try and automate as much of that flow of the generation of the document, essentially. And we'll never get it 100%, fully automated, because there might be some small tweaks you have to make on a map or aligning pictures. But the idea is if we can get 90 to 95% of it, the activities that really take up a lot of your time, we can start churning out these reports a lot quicker. So as part of this work, it was collecting a bunch of data sets particularly from in the New South Wales region, but then also performing some analysis on it. So you'll see, as I take you through, we've got some elevation models that we've brought in, and we've built contours and analyzed the slope of both the land and also some of the surrounding area. So let me share my screen. We have one example. I think this is a Western Murray farm. So it's Chicana. It's quite a small plot. So when we're looking at the data, we've got to try and imagine, like, I guess what this would scale to with some larger areas. And the whole idea of this kind of report is that we start higher up at the catchment scale or at the LGA, and then we build up these data layers and kind of narrow down to then the actual property and provide some information about both hydrology but also vegetation on the property. So this first page, and there's still got to be some text that gets filled in, but for now this is kind of the layout for our images. I'll zoom in a little bit, but hard to see anything. But this image here just shows your general placement within the catchment or the LGA. And then another data set that we brought in the elevation model for each one of the LGAs. And so you can look at kind of where you're placed and your surrounding elevation. Going through, it was also important to understand kind of what conservation areas and what, I guess, both in terms of traveling stock reserves, but also, I guess, high biodiverse, or I guess what he was calling like baseline sites. And these baseline sites are particularly useful because you can, use them to springboard your interventions off of, or compare as you're going. So we've got a bunch of areas that are pulled in. This is from the National Vegetation Information System. Usually there's not as much as this, so it's quite a busy map. But the idea is you can go in and interrogate some of these areas. So you can see we've got river red gums and a few different types of grasses or grass mixes as part of those river red gums. And so yeah, it's quite a detailed map, and I guess farmer would be happy sitting down and seeing not just within their zone, but what are those surrounding areas. And the idea is in the future, as once they're creating their digital twin, they'll have a button on the side of all these maps, which take them to a live version of the map that they can go into, interrogate a little bit further, which is pretty neat. Then drilling down a little bit further, we're looking at their individual farm then, and the color scheme is kind of hard to see here. This is the NVIS color, like standard color scheme, but maybe we have to change the background here. But the idea is this is your pre-European or pre-1750 vegetation, and this is your current then. And so again, a good point of strategy. Then we've got your slope for your area, but then also some of the surrounding zones, and we have our contour plots on there as well. We've also got an elevation model. It's not shown here yet. We're just working on the legend for it. And then there's one other plot that we're looking at, which is, let me share my screen, the hydrology, which looks like, it'll look something like this. And so we have all the water courses, but then any water bodies that have been analyzed by satellites. So we'll get, in the same way, your local area, but then the surrounding zone as well, and give you a bit of context of local hydrology. Jumping back into the document. Then this goes into the Ruminati emissions estimate that we'll be copying in or stitching. It kind of gets stitched at the end of the document. And then it was followed by, what was the last piece that we were adding in? The
protected matter search tool. So it's the list of ecosystems and different birds, mammals, reptiles, fish that are threatened or part of the protected matter search tool.
Yep. Right. And so I guess this is the first pass at what this automated system might look like. The first run I went through, it took me about an hour putting all the images in, and I've got it down to about 15 minutes now. And so hopefully I'll be able to shave away a little bit more at that time. But we're still just working out exactly what base layers work best with the color schemes and legends and and placements throughout. Yeah, any questions?
Over to the floor.
So those maps are being produced in QGIS, guessing from that last little screenshot that you showed us.
All the maps are actually produced purely in Python, like just running a script. QGIS I'm just using to visualize some of the layers that I haven't done yet, because I guess the thinking is eventually we'll have an endpoint kind of like this where you can just upload your boundary file, hit continue, and it will generate a folder of all the assets that you would need to then create the document. And then the next step on from that is actually placing all of those assets within the document. So it actually passes you back a link to a Google Doc that's already pre-populated. But everything's being done at the moment just in Python scripts.
What will we actually be doing?
You'll be filling in an Excel spreadsheet like you have, Deanna, with the Ruminati needs a Regen advisor to guide them through, and the protected matter search tool to discuss with them what native species, etc. But from the geography, we can pull in all of these layers. What I'm hoping you'll do is read the report, understand it, and put a covering letter of like, this looks to be interesting based on your report. Check out page 5. It shows, the stream order and the slope, and you might be interested in erosion control measures, given that that's what's an intervention that could be useful in your landscape. Those sorts of things you can do the synthesis of, but at least you've got the data collected, visualized, and available for you to draw on.
Okay, so these all look like they'd be, well, not quite, they're more important than appendices, but basically what we need is a one-page summary of this is your key points and there's all your data. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah. So I know that some of you have got to be careful with the recommendations part because you don't have professional indemnity. But remember, if you can give me your thoughts and I can look at the same report, I've got professional indemnity, so I can then send that off to the farmer from Regen Farmers Mutual. In the future, assuming, more farmers paying fee for service, you'll need your own professional indemnity and you'll need to provide your own advice or recommendations to those farmers. But for now, you'll probably have a word in my ear and I'll send it off to each farmer. Okay.
I'd be interested to see the reports from TrapRock if we are able to do that, because I don't like the output from the protected matter search tool. It includes a lot of stuff that is not relevant to a particular property. So I've only exported mine as Excel. I wasn't sure whether we were meant to put the PDFs in there as well, but I kind of consider the PDFs not important because they've got so much unnecessary information in them and they're pages long. So I was just wondering how that was addressed for the TrapRock situation.
Sure. They're sort of different, but I've found the emotional response from seeing what, for most farmers, they haven't gone through and looked at the protected matter search tool, so they actually don't know what ecosystems or animals they should be on the lookout for. I agree, it's not formatted for that purpose at the moment, so it looks pretty ugly. I will show you what the TrapRock was, because it was pretty makeshift, if I'm honest. Maybe it's in the landscaping.
And just while Wardy's getting that up, if there are any other data layers that you guys come across that you think would be helpful for a particular group, send it my way, and we can add it in as another layer to visualize.
So these are some of the formats of previous environmental farm assessments. So this wasn't trap rock, but the same idea. So logo up the front, bit of a description, but then copy pasting from a screenshot in their twin, bit of comment back there, like carbon opportunity finder using look-see. Then we were using look-B, which was the look-see equivalent, but for biodiversity, copy pasting that out. And then we were just pulling out the Excel of what are the species as a chart. And that, as you point out, lots of them won't be. And then a bit more on local opportunities, next steps, how to do your digital twin. We did a different version of the report a bit later on. Yeah, so Kim and I started on that one. That's probably a better one. So just for the carbon footprint, again, the boundary, bit of wording. This time we were using a carbon estimation tool called the Cool Farm tool. And that would give you CO2, NO2, methane, but nowhere near as pretty as Ruminati. And then the look-see, and then, you know, various opportunities in the opportunity finder. So I think what we're trying to do, Deanna, is step up from that sort of template format where you cut and paste for each farmer into something that's landscape or LGA landscape, then their farm level views of different layers. And we're not hard coding in what the wording is or what the recommendations is. That's going to go as the cover letter. But consistently formatting the maps so that everything's centered around their farm, just all that sort of basic presentation stuff we're trying to fix here. And obviously Ruminati's a step up from the Cool Farm tool, but the opportunity finder, that's going to, you know, change as we keep talking through what our stack is, etc. And whether we have a list or the PDF printout, something that tells them of what the high level biodiversity information, like what native species are present and what threatened ecological communities. I think it's probably not as pretty as it could be by just taking PMST across, but that was the concept, was to merge three of them together. It might be long, might be some extraneous information, but you can even write that in your cover letter. Just look at the species list, ignore the rest of the PMST. Yeah. Good questions though, Deanna. Anybody else got questions on, you know, how to maybe interpret some of those maps and what sort of information you could glean from them? We could, if you're willing to, Luke, stick them up and then we can actually talk through what's relevant here or what's important at this point. Would that be useful to anyone? Am I teaching you to suck eggs? I don't want you to feel like I'm...
I could talk to a little bit about kind of where we've sourced all the data, just so that if there's any questions around, you know, where this data's come from, like data integrity, then we can work on that. So
I think that needs to be explicitly written in there, in the document. So as a caption for each picture, what the source data is.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, legally, we shouldn't be sending this out without all the attribute. So, yeah.
Mental note: we were busy doing keys and legends, and we got to fucking source the thing.
I had it as like an option. When I'm plotting it, it's like, give an attribute. I was like, we'll do it later. Don't worry. So yes, but we do have to get to that. I think the interesting thing around catchment information is, where are you drawing the line? Particularly when we're talking about landscape impact programs, where do we draw the lines of landscapes? And there are three, I would say, key data sets that you can talk to. One is the LGA, the local government authority. You then have the actual catchment drainage basins, which are more of the larger scale drainage basins, and then you go one step down to the river regions. And so the river regions and drainage basins, both of those were derived from this elevation model. That's a national 30-meter elevation model, and from that they were also able to determine the Strela order of streams, and that's more important with the hydrology. But backed behind all of this is kind of this 30-meter elevation model, except for the LGAs. The LGAs are government boundaries that they've put in. But in terms of delineating landscapes, those are the three kind of key ones. It's LGAs, your your drainage basin, and then river region.
Wardy and Luke, would it be worthwhile putting just a reference or a list of catchment plans with that are available for that farm? I know if you go into any sort of a trade, you actually need to reference the catchment plan, and in some cases there are specific plans, like on our farm at home, we're in the McIntyre catchment, but there's a particular catchment creek that comes out of just off the edge of our property called Cucumber Creek, which is known for a high salt load in the catchment. So there was actually a plan done for Cucumber Creek specifically as well. So that might give a little bit of reference for sort of source material or change of practice or opportunities that to integrate into catchment plans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as we've been talking about it, having both the LGA and also the catchment side by side is probably worth seeing, how the LGA is structured versus how the catchment is, and then all the plans that go along with that.
Yeah, I think that'd be useful for a lot of farmers. You've got the slope, and the hydrology, but obviously that interaction between the property and the catchments is useful, particularly when you're trying to reference back to plans.
Yeah, and there's also there's a really cool data set. I've started building it, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But the idea of a sphere of influence around your property. And so you can imagine that you've got all of the surrounding property boundaries just in a cadastre. And what you do is, with the hydrology model, you can look at how much you're influencing, or let's say like an influence score, with all the surrounding properties in your area, and also what properties are most influencing your land. Because that's, when it comes to then interventions, it could be both for existing landscape impact programs, but for catalyzing new ones. It's a great way to then have farmers reach out and start banding together in that way. So the sphere of influence, it's a neat piece of work, but it's going to take a good maybe month to put together. But I'd say it's pretty crucial for the landscape impact programs.
I don't know if there is any sort of a data set on it yet, but there's a lot of work being done with the ENDA, eDNA testing that's happening. I'm not sure if there's any reference maps yet to pull from, but that may also be interesting data in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if we can map it from upstream, and you can almost predict.
We're already sort of working with Odinata a little bit, and they're getting a lot of kits out for sort of citizen science type projects. The one thing we haven't been able to do with them yet is to, when a test is taken, to log the results back to a map, which is now available to a broader audience, but yeah,
Is it?
I'm hopeful that that's coming. It's probably not there yet.
There's no database that you can add eDNA results to, or like log observations?
Last conversation we had with them, no, I think they were going off looking for it, but
Yeah.
the group that they were working with, you couldn't access the data easily yet.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Koalas have privacy rights too.
So going into the elevation model, I'll just talk briefly about kind of the two elevation models available in Australia. You have a high resolution 5-meter model, and then also a national 30-meter model. The 5-meter model is quite good. It's just that the coverage isn't as well, it's not 100%. So it's kind of hit and miss between if a farmer lands in a zone or they don't. It's in the eastern parts of New South Wales, I think it's quite good, but it drops off as soon as you go more towards the west, and kind of the more rural you get, the worse it is. So for now, we're just going to rely on the 30-meter. The 5-meter is really only useful. Well, it's useful to have that resolution, but it becomes particularly useful if you want to do keyline planning or any kind of farm dam placement. You probably need at that stage a 5-meter product. But other schools of thought say that you actually need a higher resolution, and so people will go and do drone mapping of the property. So it's 5 meters kind of in this halfway zone that if you don't have coverage, it's not particularly useful.
Can I be a devil's advocate and say that for our pilot on the East Coast, that maybe the 5-meter would be more useful than the 30-meter, and could we therefore have 5-meter instead of 30?
We've got the 5 meters loaded into the database, so it's not difficult, but I think we'll do it as like a custom product that comes out. So if you guys ever need a particular data set or a data layer, just drop me a message and we can we can build that out for you. But for the automated pipeline, it becomes difficult when you have to check. It's not impossible, but if you're checking for coverage and then you're falling back, and you kind of want to know that you've got 100% coverage for these automated maps.
Based on your experience, the Northern Rivers, though, it is probably the most surveyed, LiDAR, bloody monitored. Every aircraft between Sydney and Brisbane flies over it, right? Like, so it's been probably modeled to within millimeters if we find the right data set.
Yeah. It depends if it's been. I don't know if it's been smoothed. Or the trees removed, so it might require some extra processing, but yeah, I've downloaded it and loaded it. It's about 130 gigabytes, but yeah.
You're not with Optus, eh?
Industrial. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions with elevation models? We can go a little bit more into it when actually maybe we just jump down to the farm model. So see what I will get. I'm just going to pull in the elevation model for the farm. It's not done yet, and you'll see why. But yeah. So this is the elevation model. Neat map, but you can see the property is very faint. We need to change the color of that and also add a legend. But it's a pretty useful data set because it exaggerates a lot of the elevation, and so you can see ridges, and particularly when you combine this then with the hydrology, it's quite a nice data set. Yeah,
Is there a map that does put the hydrology over?
it'll be this one here, but it's so it's kind of a mix, and then the one I was showing you in QGIS before. So you should be able to see kind of if there's any farm dams from the it's called water bodies from space or something is the product, and it was an estimate. It was the one we were looking at yesterday, Woody, where it's any water that detected on the surface. So it's not good at picking up small streams, but farm dams that haven't been officially mapped. It's quite good at that. Yeah, and then we'll build in the water courses, and from that you can look at, you know, the Strela order of the stream. But yeah, this is then going to be the product for the individual farm. So it's both the land, and the way we kind of map it like this is we have the property, we have a little bit of context around, and then we have the kind of topographic map. Big problem with kind of like elevation models, especially when you're generating them automatically, is that if you just make the whole map the elevation model, you kind of lose reference of where you are. And, you know, ideally there'll be the button here that links you then to your digital twin on your account, and you can adjust the opacity, right? There's always going to be an inherent limitation with paper models, but paper maps, but yeah. Any questions?
No, it's a general comment. I like that. I like the context that you're giving the property, and then the wider area, leaving it as a geographic map.
Yeah, there's ways that you can overlay the roads on top, but the features get a little bit messy then, and you kind of lose the point of the elevation model.
Luke, will we have option for stream order being marked?
Yeah, yep. So the stream order is going to be it'll be color coded, so you'll have, you know,
Fantastic.
And it'll be overlaid on top of the water bodies, so it look like, you know, foreign QGIS. But yeah, you'll have the stream order.
Yeah, great.
What was I calling it? Strela order? Is that right, or am I?
I've
the
just
same
heard
thing, or is it
stream
different?
order, but the hydrologist amongst us is Deanna.
Strala. Yeah.
Okay.
Either.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. Yeah. Cool. And then slope is particularly useful. This is useful when you can combine it with land cover, particularly like satellite land. You know, either using NDVI or radar is also quite a good one to look for land cover, because the idea is you can look at slopes that have high inclination. You combine that then with data that is or where you have low cover, and then you have essentially an index for erosion and areas that are prone to high erosion, and you can identify those as potential intervention sites. So that's quite useful when you start combining some of these products together. But yeah, down the line.
Is there any of the old land class maps? You know, when we did the original farm plans that we were doing back in the 90s, it was quite often a land class map, and that referenced the slope. It was actually quite useful for where you got break of slope and where you got that interaction between the vegetation and the slope.
Yeah. Okay. There is a land use map that was made in 2016. I think it was about 10. I think it was 10 meters, but don't quote me on that one. So it's decently high resolution.
The land classes used to run between class 1 and class 7, I think, and the class 1, 2, 3, even 4 were reasonably good for agricultural use, and I think 5, 6, 7 were considered not tremendous for agricultural use. So that would be where you get that interaction between slope and tree cover and other attributes.
Yeah. And when was this made? 19, was it?
We used to do property plans with the Department of Agriculture, and that was back in the 90s. So the original mapping that was done on our place, that, you know, we had the just the aerial photograph, and then the land class map used to be printed as an overlay that would put over the property.
Yep. Okay. There is a degradation like index, I think, map was like, or farm state, exactly the one you're talking about. I don't know when it was updated. The only other one that might be useful in this case then, now you got me thinking, is there's a Russell map. So there's the Russell model, which is the soil erosion model. It takes into consideration factors like wind, erosion potential, clay silt sand percentage. But there was a layer that was created, I think it was 2015, for Australia for Russell, which is essentially erosion potential. But it was about 250 meter product. So it wasn't super high resolution. And as soon as you start bringing in the elevation models, you start to realize that you need something that's at least, more like on the scale of 50 meters. But broadly speaking, you can look at a catchment and say, these areas are probably more prone to erosion based on soil type. And, but I guess the micro or small scale interactions then play a pretty significant role. So it's difficult to actually give a good estimate. Yeah. But the land degradation class, the only reason I haven't included land use or land degradation is that the map, I found that sometimes the maps aren't always super accurate. Like, let's say we were going to provide a map that said, this area on your land is crops, or this is something like that. A land predictor is that it doesn't really add a whole heap, because the farmer knows exactly what's on their land, right? You don't need to go.
Farmer knows what's on their land, and quite often, particularly the ones that are looking at the sort of regenerative side of things, have been reasonably progressive and so have already done a lot of work. Sometimes we get current departmental people or current advisors that think that this is the first time the property plan's been done, and quite often it's a second or third or fourth go at it. So just some of the fencing will have been planned around those old land class issues, and the erosion controls will have come from a lot of that old land class stuff. So that's why I was just trying to get some continuity possibly or upgrade of previous informational work that was done.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kind of giving the preface and saying, listen, this is what we know from this. Well, we're not 100% sure, but based on our data, this is what we're predicting. But yeah, going in and saying, oh, this is what your land use is. Like, well, it just undermines credibility then at that point. So
You've raised one there though with me, biosecurity and ones, weeds of national significance. Do we have any maps?
I guess that would come under the there's the threatened species map, but there's probably going to be a national biodiversity atlas, something like that. So if there is any, it would probably come under that, I think. But there might be a dedicated biosecurity one. I haven't heard of it though.
I think there is. It's WONS one. Yeah, weeds of national significance, and there'll be a feral animal equivalent.
Okay, that's great.
One of the reasons I was thinking of that land class issue was exactly along those lines of credibility, because if we were able to say reference something that might have been in the farmer's eye, 20 years back, and we say, so this is probably how your fencing, was planned in the land class side of things, and these are the current maps, the newer technology that we believe will be of use to us, and it actually builds credibility because we're looking at the work that they've already done and looking to add, new value and new clarity to that same work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Mike. Gav, you're being quiet, and Tanya, you're being quiet. Is quiet good?
Yeah, quiet's good. There's some good features there that add. And I'm just trying to think through other sources of information and whether they exist as data sets. I'd say all that feral animals, all that stuff would probably be in the local land services data set somewhere. But just have to find someone willing to collaborate on that. But I'm sure they have a mapping of a lot of stuff that would be relevant.
there's a whole stack of government maps in the seed database, but if we're looking
True.
at opportunities, then weeds and feral species probably aren't a big feature for us. They're more of a threat than an opportunity.
True. And there will be a lot of money paid for a lot of bullets, I suspect. Like fences and bullets are going to get 80% of the management.
It already does. If you're an environmental pest, you don't get funded nearly as much as an agricultural pest.
Are there so in Western Murray, are there a lot of orchards in that zone?
There are, but the Western Murray guys aren't on at the moment, Luke. So that's Emma. She
Okay.
yeah. But we're recording this for her. What's your question though? Like yeah.
Well, just on the feral or even on the disease front, if there's any, for just going back to the biosecurity side of things, integrated pest management is a big cornerstone for a lot of the fruit producers. And so thinking about what we could bring in specifically around that, because I think that might be missing, front of their mind is always just how are we combating disease. And if we can bring that in alongside, potential interventions, I think that's a huge win.
All right.
But
Can I make a comment, Wardy? This might be an opportunity, but also something that we need to be diligent about, the Cultural Heritage Register. It's pretty light on for actual facts. So, you would often check for an area or a property and it would register nothing, even if the locals might know that there's something. On one hand, that's due diligence if we're going to do any work anywhere. On the other hand, it might be an opportunity in terms of engaging in some kind of cultural programs, or cultural credits is sort of a little thing in the horizon.
I fully endorse that. Do you want to try and get that into this map group, Luke, or do you want to try and do it as V2, biosecurity and cultural?
Biosecurity is probably too big, but I would say from the cultural point of view, what might be interesting is if we've got, in the beginning, we've got LGA catchment and then maybe indigenous land area, or if there is then the any other data that comes in as like,
there's Black Map. Do you know it? BLAKMAP.
Yeah.
Wardy, if I can just speak to that quickly, part of the project that's taking Carbonate's focus, or one of the pillars of our work in the next 12 months, is actually to be able to geolocate the local nation and the totem of the land. So to be able to put your address in, we're actually building a website that will be able to put your address in, and it will show you the cultural nation that you're sitting in and the totem of the land where you are. So that may be of interest, because part of what we're hoping to do is to build local biodiversity plans with a thought to the totem of the land, which is a plant or animal.
I really like that, Mike. Even, it'd be really cool, just as you're saying, as someone goes into the platform, or even in the assessment reports, when they get assigned their totem, that's kind of the little, like the little paperclip in Microsoft Office, and then you used to talk to you. We have the little totem kind of walks you through and says, okay, now it's time to upload your fuel receipts for your carbon emissions report. So that would be really neat.
Did Jeff jump onto this call then, or not?
He's
Wardy?
waving at you, Mike.
I'm on my phone, so I can only see whoever's speaking. But when we sort of hook Jeff and Luke together a little bit, Jeff will be helping to build that map, so we'll be able to just reference whatever tech stack works best to be able to interface it a bit.
Perfect.
Nice to meet you, Luke, finally.
Yeah, absolutely. And if Yeah. Have you got much experience in mapping, Jeff, before, or?
No, it looks exciting. I like
Yeah.
the colors. But
The hardest part, the colours, I tell
I'm more than willing to learn, and yeah,
Cool.
definitely would be a useful skill to have. So.
Yeah, great. Sounds good.
Luke, yeah, this is sort of by the by, but we've got the budget for digital where half of it's to open team in the US and the other half will be to interns. We might stick Jeff on the intern program. Yeah. Hey, Jeremy, anything from your neck of the woods, Southern Tablelands data sets that you think would be useful or are missing, or any comments on what you've seen in terms of report structure?
No, nothing too much to add. I guess I'm just getting a feel for the whole process and how to pull it together. So I think I'll probably have more questions as we generate a couple of reports. The yeah, what's the timeline on pulling these reports together?
Well, you'll be pleased to know you've got to the 11th, but I'm hopeful that we'll have reports, version 1s at least, ready on Tuesday for Upper Clarence, on Wednesday for Northern Rivers, the following Monday for you got at Southern Tablelands, and the following Tuesday for Western Murray. So 5th, 6th, 11th, 12th are what we're aiming for, and we'll get them into a PDF that we can provide to each of the individual farmers. And if we have time, I'll even print them so that when they come in, they'll get a handout of their maps, and everybody will have the same format. They'll just have different pictures on their different pages, and that'll help in the co-design when we're standing around the big map, that everyone's got their own little maps as well. Between now and when we print them, Luke's going to get busy over the weekend making the big maps as well, so that we can get them printed. So that it's all a bit of a crush in terms of time, like we're getting to the pointy end, and I'd rather be at your end of the week's cycle than sitting in Upper Clarence's shoes, where they might get something as a version 1. Yeah.
Okay.
Woody, can I just excuse myself, mate? I'll have to jump off early, but thank you very much for this presentation, and thank you, Luke. You know, I think this is exciting, the work that's coming together here. So I look forward to playing with it.
Great. Yeah.
Thanks,
And
Mike.
thanks for your input as well.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers,
Yeah,
guys. See ya.
You had your hand up, I think.
Yeah, logistical issue. I just wasn't sure if Gavin and I are the only one having it, about being able to use cadastrals in the digital twin, because the one that you did for Henry, I could then export the KML from there onto that spreadsheet, but none of my others are mapped anywhere except for in Ruminati. So is that an issue that can be quickly resolved so that we can use the digital twin KML export?
Yes. Have you got any of your twins connected and bringing in cadastrals? The one for Henry you mentioned, because
Because remember when we were doing Henry as our training, you ended up doing that because the cadastral gave me the circle of doom, and that's what I'm getting with all my others that I've attempted to do.
What I might do, just pause the recording or stop the recording, because I think we've kind of gone through the mapping, and then I'll share screen with you. Is that
Okay.
all right?
Yep.
I guess Emma doesn't care if we see that. Jeremy, you've got this, but basically what I need to do for you, Deanna.
I've actually had one problem doing it as well, that some of the lots don't align or don't assign properly, and even though I'm loading the cadastrals and properties that I've mapped have 40 to 70 lots, and I'm finding that there's a few lots that don't assign properly, and then there's blank spots on their well, yeah, on the map.
Mhm. We
Uh,
had that too in Ruminati, and we just assumed maybe they were little tiny bits of crown land or road or whatever that they thought they owned when actually they didn't.
Yeah, it could be something along those lines. But I found it in probably 3 or 4 properties now.
which
I just
property?
I've actually got a very good quick visual representation of it in the sense that I've put it into well, I opened one and it all opened up into Google Earth, and so you can see all the properties that I've mapped, and it sort of shows the patchiness on Google Earth where lot numbers are missing. So I'm just worried the automated report's going to spit out, and people are going to be a little bit disappointed that their property's not mapped correctly, even though they mapped it correctly on Ruminati.
Odd, because cadastrals shouldn't be like that. The reason I just shared you guys into FarmLab is that FarmLab is before your cadastrals will work, you'll need to go to settings in anybody's twin, right? And make sure that you've connected the FarmLab integration with your identity in FarmLab. If I haven't already done that for you, then you'll need to be able to do that. But once that's in, you should be able to go anywhere pretty much in Australia. So that hence my question, Jeremy, do you know which area you were looking at, which farm?
The one at Rugby Station is a standout for me. Rugby, yeah. So just put in Rugby, New South Wales.
You remember the postcode? 2732 or something?
That's it. 2583.
All right.
I could share my screen too if that helps. Pull it
Load those
together.
cadastrals.
Yep.
Come
Did you
on.
want to go through and see? You're trying to show everyone how to do it first. Then I'll show you the issue I'm having.
Sure. Like if everybody can, if you're working in any of your digital twins, you can create the KMLs using one that's working, right? But you also want every farmer to be able to connect their digital twins to FarmLab if they're doing a soils a carbon project, so that they've got chain of custody. We can totally do your one, Jeremy, but like the cadastrals for Gone just loaded, but let's do Rugby, New South Wales, 2583.
It's huge. That one. I'm just thinking Lance's one might be an
So
easier one.
which one was Rugby Station?
It's got 70 titles or 70 lots. So I'm just thinking Lance.
Gee, I was complaining about having a dozen on one of mine.
Yeah.
Let's go to Lance.
Yeah.
Lance's one, and it's 2530 Derby Falls Road, and that's an easier one to map. Yep.
What's it, Burwa?
Sorry,
it's
it's really
Rye.
hard.
It's Rye.
I need
Rye part.
a screen. That's what I need. Yeah. Have you got it?
Come on. Oh, they're making a pig's ear out of this. Deanna.
Yep.
let's talk. I'll show you how to set up your cadastrals in your twin, and then you can take the KMLs from everybody. It's just a bit of a process. Who else
Same
can?
for me as well. I'm the same.
And
I can't load cadastrals, and I've just got an invite from you
Yep.
into Farm Lab, so I didn't have that connection. So that was probably why.
That's exactly why. So, yeah. Where?
Would I be able to share my screen, Wardy, and just show the problem that I was having? Or
Please do.
So-
I think I've made you a co-host, so you can share.
I'll share this screen. Who can share host only?
You're
I
sharing.
don't know what about.
sharing.
Yep, you happy with that? Is it the whole screen, hopefully?
Yep.
Then let's just jump into the digital twins. We'll go into Rugby Station. Let's do that one. So that's the map, if you can
Yep.
see it.
Yeah.
And it does appear like all the lots are mapped. Can you see my cursor as well? That
Yeah.
there's like this part is an obvious spot. If I take that into, am I still sharing? Do you see Google Earth now?
No, I don't see Google Earth, just still the twin.
You'll have to share your entire screen if you want to do that.
That's better.
So stop sharing and restart with, oh yeah.
Is it working with the whole screen now?
Yep.
Okay. I don't want Eiffel Tower. Wow, I really should get Luke to run this. It's, see
I'm
where this
over
pulls us into.
Africa.
Oh, okay. So this is Lance's one, which is interesting too. So that's I don't know, Luke, you might be able to just tell me what's happened here, but basically these are the lot numbers that Google Earth has told me that came out in the KML file.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just a Google Earth thing. So I'm just worried the report's gonna, because I've exported a KML file out of here.
Can you zoom into that parcel now? Can you zoom in on it? Because you know what it might.
Which one was? What was two? That's Lance, isn't it?
No, Lance is the junction, the top one.
Thanks.
It might be that you've got, if you imagine like a square, and if you've got the 4 polygons on each side as part of the lots, but not the middle one, then it will. Oh yeah, so it's not coming up here either, right? Which one's missing? So top right, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a whole portion missing there, and then there's a portion missing up top here. So I'm just worried the KML files that you're going to be using for the auto generation is going to be missing part of the mapping.
Send it to me now. I'll quickly generate it. It takes a couple minutes.
And have you got the Google?
Oh yeah,
spreadsheet?
Which one? It's in the Google Sheet.
Yeah, it's Lance.
The junction.
The junction on
But
Southern Tablelands.
One that's in his twin here, Jeremy. That's accurate.
It does look fairly. It has pulled together fairly accurately. I don't know if
Basically saying Google Earth isn't accurate.
Potentially that could be the problem too. So I'm just worried that that our automated reports might come out patchy. So maybe Google Earth's not accurate.
Google Earth, if we take the steps to have everybody use the Farm Lab, that will be the accurate cadastrals. Whereas Google Earth probably doesn't have accurate cadastrals because
Well, it's not what it's not Google Earth. It's like it's the KML you're importing into Google Earth. Google Earth is essentially like QGIS, I think, right? And with that KML, I'm getting the same.
Yeah.
I'm getting the
think
same.
So there is
using
an
that.
issue.
I think it's a problem when you've exported it from rather than Google Earth visualizing it. I think it's a
Oh,
problem with
You know
the
what? When you export, there's an option in there. This is the one time I've done this. I'm not an expert. It says export all selected files. Maybe there was just 3 of them that you missed clicking, and so they weren't selected.
I don't think so. I think I ran through I could run through it again from scratch because that one only takes seconds to do if you're happy for
Yeah,
me to.
if you can just generate, try and download it again.
Yeah. So let's. Should I just share the whole screen? Let's share the whole screen. So we'll just go to Lance's one and we'll go into. Yep, we're in Lance's integration, farmland, cadastrals. Sorry, I'm working on a tiny screen. It's
Oh, it's not, but it's not showing up there. Oh no, those ones are. Hang on.
yeah. So you can see I've loaded them all,
Yeah.
and I could just go and click all of those again, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty much it.
But that
right.
is, that should work. All right. Let's
And then
Hold at the bottom
then-
and create cadastrals.
yeah, so I create cadastrals, those DPI, those lots export when I go to records, assets, land assets. Yeah, blah. So I've probably got them in there twice now. But, let's just grab the last 4.
11, 10, 9, 8. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're probably just duplicated. Yeah, they're just duplicated. So that's fine. And then export to KML. Download. And then, yeah, I guess if I open that, it'll just bring me back to the exact same thing. So
weird,
at the end of the day, I think I'm missing lot numbers.
Oh, can you, sorry, Jeremy, can you go back to the farm OS for a second? Or the surveys?
Yeah.
So when you're looking at the export here, there's no number attached. What happens if you click on the one on the left, bottom left? That I guess southwestern property. If you click on that one, what does it do?
Oh, sorry. What do you mean? Okay.
Yeah, like that. And then the next one across. The other one.
Same. The little one.
Yeah.
They're all 3 the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you find the same with this one that's missing, that it thinks it's part of this. So it's 298, and then if I click on this big one, it says it's 298 as well.
All right, let me I'm going to open up the KML and I'll be able to see exactly from that what boundaries are in there.
Don't tell me I have to remap again.
It's
Lance's was the easiest one out of.
Do you know what it might be? It might be that it's an open-ended geometry, so it's not a closed polygon, and so it just doesn't. It's not a valid shape. But it should, if it's national cadastre, it should be like, I can't imagine.
It must be coming from the cadastral layer as an error for some reason. But it's strange that you've had it happening a few times, not just a one-off.
Exactly. So when I click on that lot, it selects both, even though it's not both. And then if I unselect one, it unselects both. And maybe if I zoom in, maybe there's some more detail there. I don't know. So if I load it again,
It's really odd because in the actual KML file, it looks like there's only four polygons.
That's right. Yeah. So and there should be 1, 2, 3, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 potentially
Yeah.
lots.
Yeah. Um,
Anyway, just an issue I'm having, and it might translate to our report.
It might
I've-
be, oh, well, yeah, because they're all going to come from that farm lab, aren't they? But you could get a KML from 6maps or another cadastral place. But
if we
then
could-
if it's an error with the cadastrals, it'll be on all of them.
If we can pull it out of the carbon program, what was that, Ruminati? If we could pull it out of there,
They let us download a PDF, but we can't get their KML of the shape file, unfortunately.
yeah.
Shame.
All the services that they're using behind the scenes, we can build that ourselves. It's a map, it's an ArcGIS map service layer. But yeah, ideally we would have had it done for the weekend, but it's probably going to be a version 2 or down the line thing. And that way you guys can just provide lot and DP, and that's it. But because it seems like that's the next hurdle to jump over. But
In which case, are you able to put all those lot and DPs into a shape file, or do we have to do that?
I'm gonna have a crack at it. I'll know by, I guess I can do it probably later today, maybe tomorrow morning. I'll have a crack and see if I can. But it might be that you got to set up the service and it takes a couple days, in which case I don't think we have time. But if there's an easy fix, I'll let you guys know.
We don't know if we've got a problem yet, Andrew. So I've followed that link now that you've invited us to FarmLab. Do we log in or register as new user?
Register with Deanna at Regen Farmers Mutual, create a new email address, and then I'll get you to share screen and I'll show you how to go to settings. I think you're already a co-host.
Write down yet another new password. I had to call my bank this morning and try to remember what my passwords were to get in, and couldn't. So I had to go through the whole security process to get to my account.
And then if you say I can't be bothered to do that now, they think that you're like a scam artist, right? So you've got to. Yeah.
But so my advice to scammers is, because you have to answer a whole lot of security questions about previous addresses and whatever. And the answer to all my questions was none of the above. So I wonder if that's standard or was it just lucky for me? Okay, so I'm in, where am I? In FarmLab.
Yep, and you're now a user. So go to any of the digital twins that you've set up. Press OK. Yeah. So they're in, whatever 4-digit number is. Bot field, that's fine.
Oh, maybe Botfield's not a good example. I don't. Is that the one I was having trouble with? No, it's not. Is it, Kevin? All right, hang on.
Beautiful. Now, integrations, FarmLab settings. Connect FarmLab. Connect. Yep. Allow access. Allow access. There we go. Now connect FarmLab. Oh. Why didn't that like it?
This is what happened last time when we were all trying to onboard Henry.
Sorry, you still there?
Yep.
Okay, great. You're connected. Oh no,
Oh.
you're connected to me. Right. All right. Well, that'll still do the job. So, put connect farm lab, that bit, and create new farm. See the radio dial button, and then just name this farm. Is it Botfield or something? You don't need to worry with the owner's name, etc. It's just you've, and then press submit.
So do you have to do this for each
You can do
digital
this
twin?
for each twin, right? And then they will have access to cadastrals in each twin. Or you can get the KMLs for everybody's twin using somebody for everybody's property boundaries and quickly upload them to for Luke's benefit. Or ideally, everybody will have FarmLab integrated. So go now to integrations, FarmLab, cadastral. Let's zoom out and press load cadastrals. And then,
That's better. Right, rather than the circle of doom.
Yeah.
Cool. In business. Alrighty, I can now pop my KMLs in that spreadsheet.
yes, please. Gavin, did that make sense to you how that process worked? Like connect yourself to FarmLab, connect your twin to your FarmLab connection, create a new farm. And
Yeah, I
then,
think so. I'll follow that process, and if I have any trouble, I'll talk to Deanna.
all right.
Yeah, because I'm a pro now.
Yeah.
Give me a call. I can help you through it. Yeah. All right, Jeremy, Tanya, anything from you guys? All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming this afternoon and seeing the reporting. We will be doing stuff in the background. First cab off the rank is Kim, then Northern Rivers, and then a bit more time for you, Jeremy and Emma, who'll be watching this on video. Okay.